Welcome to Start By Listening, the podcast about sexual harm and trauma.
We are centered on educating and empowering our Western Kentucky communities.
Our goal is to transform the way we talk about sexual harm and trauma.
Transformation begins by listening to understand.
We talk so you can listen today and change the world tomorrow. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Start By Listening. It's Jennifer, aka the Friendly Therapist, here with my PSE.
Hello everybody, welcome back. It's Shelby.
We're so glad you're back. We hope you had a lovely holiday season. Hopefully you got some rest. Maybe you ate some delicious food, maybe some cookies. All things delectable. So yeah, it's kind of nice being gone for a little bit, wasn't it?
It was nice being gone, but I'm gonna say I really liked coming back. I like having a schedule, and I like having, I don't know, more meaning. I know not everyone likes to work, but I don't know. I'm a worker. I'm a worker bee. I get bored at home too easily. Yeah. It's good to be back in the saddle.
Well, if you ever need something to do at home, you can come to my house and I have a list, like a revolving list, because there's so much to do. So.
Maybe I'd do better at home if I had a list. I think it's just that like overwhelmed shutdown where it's like I could do so many things, but instead of doing anything, I'm just going to be like, nothing.
Well, I experienced that too. Yeah. Several moments during the holiday break. But I, like you, I'm glad to be back here. I'm glad to be back at work. I'm glad to be back into a routine. Mm-hmm. And today, we have a special guest.
A very special guest.
We have with us Megan Jackson. She is one of us. She works at New Beginnings. And I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're going to just dive right in. Welcome, Megan!
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm going to try and be as least awkward as humanly possible.
We embrace the weird.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I should just introduce myself. My name is Megan Jackson, and I'm the Systems Advocacy Specialist here at New Beginnings. I have a master's in social work, and I have 3 lovely little girls at home who are my life, and I'm excited to be here today. And yeah, talk about trauma and I don't know, see where the conversation takes us.
There you go. That is beautiful, because we kind of have an idea of where we want to start, but then it just takes on its own nervous system, takes on its own life, it takes on its own spiciness. And you can cuss because this is explicitly use of, oh my God. Yeah. Thank you, God. Yes.
All right, now I'm a lot more relaxed.
We like to use the word authentic. I think we say that probably like 3 times a week when describing our podcast. We are authentic, and
yes,
talk about trauma. Season 3, all about trauma. So the first question to get this conversation rolling, as someone who has worked in the court system, as someone who is still on our advocacy team, helping clients navigate the criminal justice system and how it treats victims, how does the term trauma resonate with you? What do you see? What comes to mind when you think about trauma?
Oh, so I feel like I answer that question like from a lot of different perspectives, because not only am I working within the courts here, but previously, former employment, I was the case manager for a family court judge. Mm-hmm. And then, when I did my internship in school, I was with the Department of Public Advocacy, which is the public defender's office. So in various different roles in various different ways, and starting like I think about when I first really got introduced to the court system with DPA, wonderful attorneys, wonderful staff, like wonderful people. I would kind of see from the perspective of the defendant. And, a lot of people just kind of see a crime on paper and they don't think about, how did they get there? Like, I don't think anybody grows up and says, like, I want to commit a felony. Like, that's no one's, goal.
Absolutely.
Or you see theft, but what led to that theft? Like, were they, and it's prosecuted, stealing diapers, stealing food. There is, thankfully, in this county, our prosecutors, do think about those things a little bit more than some other places. And we're very fortunate for that. But you kind of, the humanity of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other end, you see the person who was affected by that crime. So, I don't know, just various different perspectives in family court. I always, and several people, I actually heard this phrase from an attorney that I was helping work under. Whenever you're in family court, or criminal court, you see maybe people who are not the nicest on their best behavior. In family court, you see the nicest of people with the worst behavior. People, their children, their the anxiety, the emotional toll, the never-ending battle of some of those cases. You see the effects of it on the children, on the caregivers, just the parents. It's really interesting because there's so many different layers to that. And then, of course, in this position, you see the effects of trauma in large part due to the court system, to get that justice, when you've already went through so much, the traumatic event, you're forced to kind of go through, several more hoops, and each of them are traumatic in different ways. The process is grueling, and how long it takes. I could totally, before I might not have been as empathetic to understand a person being like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. Now I totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
4 years. That was one of my cases. 4 years.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is there's some judicial ethics that talk about the disposing of cases in a timely manner. And it's like, how does that apply? But also, the justice system is to make sure that the defendant's rights are upheld, and that's something that's really heavy. It's something that can be, I think, I don't know, nauseating to a degree, because it's like, especially for the survivor it's like, this person violated me. They didn't care about my rights to safety or, just human decency. Like they violated me. And so, I don't know, I can't, it's hard to have that discussion with clients, I think, being like, well, unfortunately, and Marcy's law helps to some degree.
Yeah.
But, there's some issues with that too. But how do you say to someone who's been so traumatized, hey, this process is for their rights. And it's like, I don't know, I can't imagine how difficult that might be to rectify in my mind,
Yeah, as you are talking about that, I think about all of my experience with court. In my previous employment, I worked for the state of Kentucky for Child Protective Services, and I went to court every day because I was the guardian for 40 or 50 kids in foster care. So I was always in the courtroom doing yearly reviews, all kinds of things. I was an ongoing worker. I wasn't investigative, so thank God I didn't have to do that. But, and it's intimidating.
Oh yeah.
It's like you walk in and you don't even know what the rules are.
Mm-hmm.
Can I go in this room? Can I not go in this room? Where do I sit? Mm-hmm. Where do I not sit? Has somebody forgotten about me? My case was supposed to be around this time, and there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
Then I couldn't imagine, because that was in my foster care role as a guardian. In this role, now it's like, well, this could take 4 years. This could take 6 years. This could take 3 months. and then they could take a plea deal at the last moment.
Mm-hmm.
You can take the plea deal if they take. There's so much uncertainty, and I think that's where like that acute stress, acute trauma, really just boom.
And the re-traumatization of a court date's coming up, a trial date's coming up, I need to prepare for this trial that's coming up. Trial gets pushed 6 months. And it's like, let me take a step back, forget that this has to happen, take time to grow a little bit, heal a little bit through therapy, and then here comes another date. So it's toxic anxiety all over again. And you saying the anxiety about entering the courtroom for a public space, it's not very accessible to the public in general.
Absolutely not. And that's a big problem that I actually have with the courts in general, because, and I think we've created this idea of secrecy among the courts. And we think, secrets are not safe. I even, to some degree, feel personally that are, because certain family court cases are open to the public. Like I could go down, right now to the clerk's office, say I want this case, pay for copies of it. I could obtain copies of it. CourtNet access and things like that. But there are certain JDNA cases, and
What is that?
JDNA is juvenile dependency, neglect, abuse. So when you went for social services, that would be the type of case.
Right.
Yes, are closed, and it can create a lot of opportunities for injustice to happen for the families that are involved, and if things aren't done the right way, and there's no checks and balances, there's no one overseeing these things, then we've got several different layers of trauma. Also, even in the public cases, or even in the open cases, you're right. People are intimidated to go into a courtroom. But truth be told, realistically, the judges, they serve the community. And we can walk in there. We can sit and we can watch a hearing. And I encourage people to do that in certain situations. Maybe get to know who you're electing into these positions. How do they respond to the individuals in front of them? How do they treat them? Are they abusing their power? And it's not. There's nothing wrong in doing that. I think it's important to be aware of those processes, because I used to tell, when I did in-home, I would tell some of my clients, I'd be like, hey, the only thing that separates me from you, one day it could be a phone call, or just, we all are, just doing the best we can. And sometimes we make mistakes, and some people's mistakes are caught, some people's aren't. Some people have better opportunities and more help within their families, and you see that a lot in family court. A lot of situations where single mom has to work, X amount of jobs. She has to leave her kids at home. She can't pay for a sitter, or she doesn't have someone who she trusts to sit. So she leaves children in the care of an older sibling. One of the children, might wander off or something, and she gets social services involved. She is in court for supervisory neglect. That it could be any of us. You have to triage in those situations, what's most needed. Okay, I know I maybe shouldn't leave my kids at home, but if I don't go to work, I can't pay X, Y, and Z. I can't feed them, and it just becomes this cycle, and it just, I don't know. I really encourage people though to pay attention to how others are treated, because it could very easily be one of us one day.
Absolutely. As you're saying that, my memory bank, I was like, oh, when I was in college, I took I had a sociology major as well as psychology, and it was a minor in criminology, which was fascinating. And one of our assignments was to spend 8 hours at the courthouse.
I love that.
That was the assignment.
I love
And the assignment was, and this was in Louisville, so let me just preface that, okay? And this was not family court. This is like the old courthouse before the new one got built. And the professor said, I want you to go and sit on every floor. I want you to move around on the floor. So start on this area and then just walk and sit here. He said, I'm not telling you to stare at people. I'm not, but just observe.
that.
And then he said, find out which courtrooms are public and just walk in and sit down. I had no problem sitting in the lobby, walking up and down the floors. I had no problem just getting the flavor of that. But the moment I had to insert myself into a courtroom, I was like so filled with anxiety and nervousness. And I knew I could because it's a public, but I felt like that's not my business,
Right.
Like, I mean, that's not my case or whatever. And it was for like things like drugs, speeding tickets, because we went to night court too, because then now you go at nighttime and you see the difference between daytime and nighttime.
I didn't even realize there was a daytime, nighttime court.
In certain counties, yeah.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense with so many cases. I just wouldn't guess.
And I was like, wow, like I'm really like, whoo, I don't want to, but I did learn, like you said, I learned and I watched the behaviors of the attorneys and of the judges. And I watched and I saw like who treated their clients with respect and dignity, who did not. That was very apparent. And that was based on, I was in my 20s, so I was in college. Like I had no knowledge of anything regarding anything. And I could just tell by body language.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, something that I'll never forget, on the very first day that I ever worked for Judge John, he's in his robe and we're walking into the courtroom and getting ready to sit right beside him on the bench. And he turns to me before he opens the door and he says, if I'm an asshole, you tell me. That's the most important part of your job, is that if I'm being a dick, tell me. Okay. And I was like, all right. He's like, I want to know. And he'd probably be like, don't repeat my language. He did. And he would remind me. And I would tell him, you need to eat. You're hungry. You're giving grumpy old man. And he would say to people, like, I'd pass him a note, like on the bench when I saw him getting it out. Because he's a human. People get frustrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he treats everyone, with the same level of humanity and kindness, and he'll say, sorry, I'm hungry. I'm being a jerk. Or sorry, I didn't sleep very well last night. Or you're just working my nerves. I'm sorry. We need to come back on a different day. I apologize. But he's very, he lets him see that human element and he takes accountability for that. The way that people responded to him was so much better.
Yeah. Because we're human. It's connection.
It's self-awareness and realness, like people real recognize real, baby. You got it.
I mean, I remember sitting in a courthouse one time and an attorney came out and I know there's not really HIPAA in court systems because that's medical. But an attorney just walked out and just like yelled out this person's name.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, well, I had to do that.
Well, here's the thing though. Like this was a lawyer that this person had been, utilizing their services for years. So it wasn't just like, I've only met you one time. This person didn't even recognize their client.
So there's like a level of disrespect. Like, I've been working with you, but I don't even know what you look like. So I'm just going to shout into the abyss and hope you come to me.
Do you see what I'm saying? That versus, I've also been in a courthouse before and I've seen an attorney come out, like looking, right? Like, oh, there you are. Very friendly. You know what and I'm like, wow. And that's the kind of stuff that I think the professor wanted us to watch and notice, because how that connection leads to feeling safe. Like, not only am I paying you a lot of money to do something that I don't have any knowledge of, but I want to feel safe and connected to know that you're going to do the best job you can
Oh, I love that you said. So I have a group of girlfriends that we're in a group chat with, and this comes up like so frequently. It's because a couple of them are going through some struggles, just past relationships and custody stuff, and they're just venting. Like we're just girlfriends just venting, and it's so often that it's like yeah, my attorney might be a great attorney, but I want them to believe in me. I want them to understand. I want them to give a fuck that I am going through this. I don't want them to talk to me like a dog. Like, it's like you could have an attorney who might not be the most, like, just going to pull a rabbit out of, their hat or whatever. But if they are fighting for you, if they don't demean you, if they understand that, and it's, in court, you're meeting people on the worst day of their lives, one of the worst days of their lives.
Yep.
Even in just like a speeding ticket circumstance, you're feeling that heart race. It's nerve wracking. It's costly, and anxiety inducing. And I think the ups and downs too. Like I would, just seeing them talk and having those conversations with my group of girlfriends, like their children, even if you don't discuss it, that you're going to court, that mood, there's this up and down and up and down. And it's just everyone, that whole familiar unit feels that. So when thinking about how survivors feel before a trial, when, it gets pushed back and how many times reset. And it's just that up and down, and they want to get off that roller coaster, because who wouldn't? I mean, how do you heal when you know that court's coming up? How do you move on? Because you spend so much time staring at that calendar date, and as it inches closer and closer, how do you move on? You can't until court's over with, and to some degree,
and then there's what I call the fallout phase after court.
Exhausting.
When trial's over, and I will say that with our clientele, our track record of having very successful cases is extremely high because we're involved.
Oh, absolutely.
And because we prepare. And so when there is the victory, that's what I use the word, and then there's like this high for a couple of weeks, and then the fallout. It's like, because then there's all of this realization that occurs, and can be quite traumatic for a client as well, when they say, oh my gosh, I'm the reason that this person is now incarcerated. I'm the person who spoke up. I got the ball moving, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm curious, and I wonder, and I mean, I know you're not a lawyer, but you worked with a lot of lawyers. I'm curious, does that occur with lawyers as well? Because there's so much trauma just with secondary trauma, with being exposed to the primary trauma from clients as a lawyer. And I'm just, do they have like a fallout too?
So I know who you need to have on is another guest sometime. She's, and I'm going to say her name, and I don't think she'd mind, but Heather Blackburn. She's phenomenal. A phenomenal human and a phenomenal attorney. I'm always like, if I need someone, I'm calling you. I mean, she just amazing person. She is a public defender. She is brilliant. Watching her in court is, I mean, it's like watching like a movie unfold. But, we've had some discussions. It's exhausting. I remember going with her whenever I was with DPA, and she's been with DPA for many years. And, I loved watching her in court, of course. And, but then the trial's over. It's like exhaustion. And I think what a lot of people, because they're like, how could you defend, someone who did those things? And people forget that, you're not defending what that individual did. You're defending the Constitution. Because if they don't get an appropriate defense, it makes it, if people don't play by the rules, if there isn't that checks and balances, then it makes it a whole lot easier for someone who is not guilty to be taken advantage of. Someone who is, Black, poor, non, or like English is their second language. I mean, it makes it a whole lot easier for those people to be victims of the system, you know? Definitely.
So can I jump off of this? This is kind of changing the conversation.
Go for it.
Just slightly, just based on what you said. So we're on the same page. Criminal justice reform, like, we need to ensure that people are not being taken advantage of, have rights to a fair trial, and criminal justice reform needs to happen nationwide. How moving from working with the courts, working with DPA, to now working at a victim-centered agency, with me personally, it causes a lot of inner turmoil, just because, not necessarily with our clients and their perpetrators, like, fuck them. Highest sentence. They're fucking sexual offenders, they're perpetrators, they need punished for what they did. For the sake of our clients, get them justice. And there's transformative justice, which is another way to seek justice, but with the criminal justice system, like, what our clients are looking for when they're coming forward is justice in the criminal justice sense. And what does that look like? And how do we work with them and what that looks like? How does that sit with you? Does your mind do the same back and forth? Like, I'm interested in how your mind works when it comes from moving from DPA and working with the courts to working with victims, like how your inner, I don't know if that's a very effectively asked question.
No, I think I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean? Because again, I go back and forth all the time. Like, criminal justice reform is necessary, but also victims' voices are not heard enough in the criminal justice process, and they need rights and they need to be heard. So how do we reconcile that?
I think that it's not a matter of necessarily the court process needing reform until we get to like sentencing, like punishments.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and this is how do we reform what divides us in a courtroom? Okay, and when I say that, I mean, like, if you are wealthy, you're going to have access to bail money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're going to have more opportunities to do certain things that look good to the court. You're going to have an opportunity to go to certain therapy and the best of the best. You're going to have the best defense team. Mm-hmm. And, you know, something that's kind of interesting, going back to the DPA thing for a minute, is that you would hear things like clients would say, I want a real lawyer. It's like, your public defenders see more cases, try more cases. I mean, you want to talk about experience. They've got it, you know, all. But they have hundreds of clients, you know, constant. How do you give, when you pay someone, you know, a $10,000 retainer right off the bat, and, you know, that bill can jump up to $100,000 and you're paying it, it's a heck of a lot easier to get that individualized time. They have staff that can help these people get to these resources and set them up appointments, you know, things like that. You know, so it's really a matter of how do we kind of alleviate that inequality, because it does. I mean, you see somebody walk in there with an attorney who's, everyone knows what their retainer is. You automatically know. You know, you don't know if they put it, well, actually, in some cases, they might have had to take out a second loan. You have, you know, mortgage or whatever.
Yeah.
But that attorney being in there says something about your status, you know, your financial status. It speaks that to them. If you're appointed a public defender, you have to say on record, you know, what your income is. Can you pay X, Y, and Z? What assets do you have? It's all on the court record. They know exactly what you have. It's called affidavit of indigency, and each one has to be done whenever DPA is appointed. So the difference in that, you know, and knowing, okay, well, this person, you know, they don't have a car. How are they going to get to treatment? How are they going to get to AA? How are they going to get to, can they reasonably do this? They're working, you know, X amount of hours. Or if they aren't working, they aren't able to find a job. Well, idle hands, you know, that's kind of the thought process. So I really think that there's, you know, and if we raise the standard of what people, we all have access to, you know, food and water, I think you'll see a drastic reduction and crime if we don't have to fight for everything, because these people have. But sorry, I could go off on a tangent, but whenever you look to, there's this file room in DPA, of course, with all these cases, and you'll notice that some of them are so thick. There's these massive, like really strong rubber bands, and it's years and years and years. Some of them starting with, guess what? Juvenile.
Well, yeah, and then you're just stuck in that cycle of recidivism because you have no way of getting out because it's the cycle of poverty.
Mm-hmm. But if we did everything we could then, if we exhausted all of our efforts, if when that person first goes to court, let's say it's a juvenile, because some of those serious offenders, they started very young, or behaviors were recognized very young. If we caught that then, and we, instead of punishment, there wasn't, jail hanging over and this big scary, it was, okay, how do we heal? Let's figure out why. And we really put the focus on that, which I think that there's people, heavily involved in this community, more so than a lot of others, that, are seeking to get just that. But I don't know. I feel like it could have prevented so many people from being victims of this one person if we had really. No one ever asks whenever new statutes are put into effect, and I don't feel like we're asked, hey, mental health professionals, what do you guys think? And it's very. They used to tell me in court, they'd say, oh, Megan went to feelings school. My best friend Nathan says that all the time. He's an attorney. He's like, oh, you went to feelings school. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of like a...
How dismissive.
Yeah. And he means it, just joking.
Well,
but at the same time, in court, you're not supposed to have a whole lot of emotion.
Oh, I know, because even like as the verdict is being read, you are told not to show any emotion.
Yeah.
And how... It's the nervous system responding. How do you not have emotion?
Yeah.
And what does that even mean? Like, if I show emotion, does that mean the verdict is going to be changed?
Right.
It cannot be changed.
You're fearful of it. You become fearful. And how do humans are emotional beings. How do we take the human element out of the courtroom when it's humans whose lives are affected? How does that reconcile? How does that make sense? To tell humans that they have to behave without something that is innate within us, where everyone feels emotions. We lose the humanity.
I was always kind of like,
and you forget. I can tell you.
Well, we would lose our humanity. I think that's the key point, is if you're taking the human element out of the courtrum, you're making it so that it's easier to sentence people to death. I mean, where we're at in criminal justice is just the advancement of human society so far within the last couple hundred years. I mean, we used to hang witches, and now at least they have a trial. But I mean, there's still states that sentence people to death. So I feel like you want to separate yourself as much from that as possible.
That brings up an interesting thing that you talked about, and that piggybacks off what you said, Megan. Taking the humanity out of the human, right, within the court system. So again, just observing. Whether this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was in Louisville, whether that's in the last 12 years I've been here in Owensboro, I have yet to see with my eyes a person involved in the court system that is happy, has relaxed body language, has a genuine smile where the whole face lights up. I don't think I've ever seen that. It's so then I get curious, right? Why? What is it? Well, then I think back and I'm like, probably all the secondary trauma. And I mean, like you just said, that in the public defender's office, they have hundreds of cases.
Burnout.
How do you show up with the best that you have? And I mean, you have to be pretty damn smart to be a lawyer, right? Like it's a lot of knowledge up in his head. Or a good test taker. No, I'm teasing y'all. But seriously, like with the people that you've worked with that you said are stellar, right? Like we're talking,
brilliant. Yeah.
So you can have all this knowledge in the world. But if you are seeing hundreds of people and you are burned out, because you are, how can you really effectively do what's best for you, your client, your community, your whole, like, everybody that's behind you, your family? There's no joy.
There's only an adoption, and there's still a sad component because you have to do a termination of parental rights before you do an adoption. But I used to tell people, like, I would visibly cry and I'd be like, I'm sorry, this is the one happy I get. I'm not gonna, like, if I'm happy, because they'd be like, can you take our pictures? And I'd be like, of course, but I'm gonna tear up. You know, I'm a human, and we don't get many of these. And and it gives me chills thinking about it, because when there is an adoption on docket, that whole courthouse is, we're so excited for them. You know, because it's a small bit of joy. But, you know, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, Judge used to tell me, Megan, if you care too much about any one case, that means we shouldn't have it. She was 100% correct. Because if you put your emotion into something, then it's not the best outcome. It's what you think is best. And that is overexerting, you know, the power as, you know, a judge, is that it's not about, it's what the law says. Now, does the law need to incorporate and get with the times and account for, you know, emotional stability and, you know, least trauma as possible, you know? Absolutely. But when you get into that, I know what's best for you, because like in custody, there's a, like, it's the best interest standard, the best interest of the child. And there's like 8 different factors, and you kind of go down, you know, those, and they're a tool to guide, you know? But you have to kind of use that, because you don't want to let your past experiences, your biases, you know, because it doesn't work that way. It can be unfair. We can be wrong. Our biases can be totally off, and it happens.
Which is even acknowledging. Yeah. As humans, we all have them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's when you find the biggest problems is when people think that they have none. That's when there's a whole lot of issues with, you know, overstepping, you know, and a judge can only, you know, rule on what's in front of them. They're not investigators. Their staff isn't investigators. They're not, you know, and a lot of judges do listen to professionals, and but it's like, again, if they don't have the resources to find these professionals, to seek help, to have them come testify on their behalf, and, you know, there's so many different things that can affect people in court, and so many little things that, if this had been done. And I think we drive ourselves crazy with that too. Like, I should have said this. I should have done that. You know, and how can I be at peace with that? But, you know, when you said, you know, you don't see a lot of people with like the joy that you can't. And that, there's not good days in court, worst days of people's life, you know, most of the time. And I can tell you, I remember, because I would type the domestic violence orders, you know, for the judge to sign, you know, on the bench, and I would go and I would kind of case manage, is what we called it, the cases beforehand, with the help of the attorney from legal aid, and the OASIS advocate would be there. And I remember after every single DD docket day, I would lay there like, did I check the right box? What's going to happen if I didn't? Oh my gosh, what if they, and you worry. Did I make an error that could cost someone their safety or their life? And it happens. The weight of that, you know, heavy. The weight of that is so heavy. And it wasn't my burden to bear. I was just, ultimately his signature. But I would look at him and know how he cares about people. And I would think, I can't let, if I didn't do something right and he accidentally missed it, it's just your mind, it goes crazy with it.
Well, and when I'm not going to talk about like court stuff, but just in general as human beings, when we are burned out, when we are exhausted, when we're not getting enough sleep for our body, 8 hours does not mean everybody in this world needs that. Okay. Each body is different. Each nervous system is different. When we don't have the time to go to the bathroom, when we don't have the time to eat, right? Just basics. That affects our ability to comprehend, to listen, to engage. And I think because our society is so focused on go, 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 busy, 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 well, let me see if I can get like 4 or 5 more things done.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, like, we've all seen this in our history of working. We see when clients come through our doors and you realize quickly, oh my gosh, horrible injustices have been done to this person, this family, because they went through the cracks. Because they got overlooked. They got missed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe that the answer to many things in life is to do less and rest.
Yeah.
But the world does not operate on Jennifer's perspective. It needs to, but we'll go there differently.
You can be more thorough.
You can, because you have the space, literally, to look at all of this information instead of just right here.
Mm-hmm. And if we looked at, okay, is this a crime that was committed out of necessity to survive? Let's take everything off docket that didn't actually hurt. Like, okay, if someone steals diapers from Walmart, I'm obviously like, you shouldn't steal, like, but we can forgive those things. We can have them come, maybe have them come to like a pre-trial thing where it's not actually in front of the judge. Give them resources, have them, provide them with all like community, like people who can, community partners, people who can help assist them in buying diapers, or be like, okay, listen, you have to sign up for this program and show me that you have. And then if you don't, okay, that frees up the judge's docket to deal with the things that need more time and attention. We can reduce our docket size.
Absolutely.
And if we reduce our docket size, we can do, okay. And it's like, oh, well, less cases in a day. You're doing more for those. You're preventing them from having to keep coming back. Let's close these. We bog down the dockets with like these resets. I understand why they have to happen, but they have to happen because there's so many others, and to not forget them, you literally have to put them on docket so that you're reminded of them. Yeah. Okay, let's not see them as a number. Let's see them as an individual. And kind of going back to taking the humanity out of the human. How many times have you heard, oh, their eyes were dead. They showed no emotion. Mm-hmm. We're telling them they can't.
Not only are we telling them that they can't,
we're forcing them to.
We're forcing them, and their nervous system is responding, and it's shut down.
Yeah, they could just be dissociating.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But one of the worst things that I have ever seen in a courtroom was a boy, a child. There were multiple victims. He goes through his trial. He sees the entire, like all of the loved ones for the family, the victims are all there. He's still listening to these impact statements. And you look over and there's no one. There's no one sitting behind him. The weight of that. And how angry his response was, how taunting he was at those families. And it's like, I think that in some way it felt taunting to him that they had, like, even, and they weren't no longer there, and he took their lives. And that's obviously horrific. he never had anyone. There was no, he doesn't have human emotion because he was never shown affection and love. I mean, yes, you see people all the time who commit horrible crimes, but you usually see someone in the courtroom that loved them. Maybe even if it's just one person, you know. And I'm not saying that there aren't various, you know, mental health disorders that would cause people to do horrible things, or, you know, I don't know. But
that's a very valid point, because here's the thing. I always say, I detest, I hate, I loathe, whatever you want to, intolerant people. However, because I am intolerant of intolerant people, therefore, me too.
Mm-hmm. Oof, yeah.
So if we look at this idea of transformative justice, restorative justice, whatever words you want to call, it has been around for thousands of years within the indigenous folk. But it was in the 70s when actually things really changed and criminalization really began with the domestic violence movement. It was, we need to hold perpetrators accountable, right? That's really began the floodgate of the courts being processing of domestic violence and perpetration and jail time, like it was in the 70s. And that was because the movement radicalized and came forward, and women said, no more. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's how all this started. And then what happened? And now we're in 2023. So how many years later? 40 some years later. Mm-hmm. Now we're understanding and realizing, we left behind some people. Mm-hmm. Because perpetrators just don't wake up and are born perpetrators. I mean, there are a few who have psychopathic tendencies. That's a whole different thing.
And that's a very small number of people. Very small.
So they were created because of trauma. Mm-hmm. And I'll go one step further, and here's where it's going to get even spicier. Okay? So all three of us in this room identify as women. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Biologically, we have the ability to have children. Mm-hmm. Okay? Therefore, as women, we are birthing our own perpetrators.
Mm-hmm. Oh, as a woman, your dating pool is also your predator. And if you identify as, if you're a straight woman and you, I mean, think about that. Like your dating pool is literally like by dating, you are putting, well, you shouldn't be, but I mean, that boggles my mind, you know, to think about that. Yeah. Like the risk safety of our safety is at risk
24/7. It's at risk the moment it's 5:15 and I'm walking out this parking lot at nighttime and it's dark. It's at risk when it's 9 a.m. and I'm walking in. It doesn't matter if it's dark. Mm-hmm. It gives it more opportunity. Mm-hmm. But as women, and this might be something we talk about like on our wrap up, Shelby.
Yeah.
But I think we have to begin to own and be accountable for our role.
Absolutely.
In
raising
sexual offenders.
Yeah, and think about it too. You know, if you look at all of the, well, I should say all of them, most of the most notable serial killers, what is the relationship that you will hear?
Mommy, and look, I'm going to say this, and I know it's stereotypical, but it's mommy issues because.
Why do they hate women?
Because there was some form of caregiver neglect, trauma, embarrassment, ridicule, all of that.
And they target women. And I think it's interesting. I heard this theory about how we saw less serial killers, you know, whether it was that they weren't caught but as a whole, our nation saw a reduction in serial killers. Like that, you know. So anyway, sorry, got kind of tongue-tied there. Since abortion was legal. Why do you think that is? Because a mother who doesn't want to, like, if you don't want to be a mother, how can you be forced to nurture this child, to love this child, to pay attention to this child when you resent it?
It's not just serial killers. That was a study done by the people who wrote Freakonomics.
Yeah.
They found
Yes.
abortion records, and once
Yes.
abortion was decriminalized and women had access to it,
Yeah.
we saw a reduction in crime overall because
Mhm.
there weren't people in poverty being forced to
Yes.
birth children that they could not emotionally or financially care for.
Or the children, like if you're in a horrible DV situation and you don't, then that prevents a child from witnessing that, and we prevented
Yeah.
it's so, it is astonishing to me. Like, and, I think about, because I'm a survivor of DV. And when I think about that, I immediately, I'm like, I go to that, and I went to their mothers.
Mhm.
I went to his mother and said, hey, this is happening. And who was also a survivor of DV.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went, no, you're a liar. You're making this up. And I was like, because I thought she's a survivor. She'll understand. She'll want them to get help. She will, because remember, I thought I loved this person. And I thought this person loved me.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the human who loved him the most.
Did she ever hit you with it's not that bad, or he would never, or she hits back, it's her fault too?
It was, well, what did you do?
Yeah.
Victim blame.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember I go, what did you do? And she's like, they're not the same. Yes, they are.
Well, if you think about it, and I'm a child of the 70s, growing up, I was told this is how a girl behaves. This is what girls do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I distinctly remember, and I actually processed this memory in therapy because it was that traumatic for me. I remember being about 8 or 9 years old and being told that I had to serve iced tea to my relatives that were men. Remember this?
I would have thrown a fit.
I did. I said, why? They have 2 legs. They can come get it themselves. I said this. Now, back in the 70s, you didn't talk back, but I came of the house with my mother was very progressive for her time. And she allowed me to be very opinionated, which family members told her, you need to beat her ass.
I get that.
So she was told that, right? Again, so this is the environment that my mother came from, right? Hear this, right? And so, again, I said, why? They have 2 legs. They can get up and come get their own tea. They can, right?
Logical, yes.
Yes. Now, my mom said, because that's what we do. And that stuck with me, right? Obviously, because I had to process that in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But think about the messages, whether blatant or hidden.
It's the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Not only that, but the messages that we feed into and we perpetuate.
Oh, yeah.
Ingrained masculinity.
Yeah.
Toxic masculinity. Ingrained toxic. Yeah.
I remember, because I have 2 brothers, I remember vividly. I can still, if I close my eyes, I can smell the grass. I can feel like the sprinklers. It was a summer day. The sprinklers, like the water on my skin, like seriously that vividly. The boys were playing outside, and I liked to play with them too. They had all their friends over. None of them it was super hot. I'm talking like 102 degree day. And my dad used to let us pull out the sprinkler in the field and and I remember they had the neighbor boys over there playing and running through, and they all had their shirts off.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, okay, well, they have their shirts off. I want to run through the cold water too. I was tiny. I'm talking like 6, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I take my shirt off and I run through the sprinkler. And I remember like the neighbor being like, what are you doing? Put your shirt, like I was like, there was shame, and I instantly felt that shame. And I was just like, I would have never thought, and it's so weird because, not that long ago, like Lily, her boy cousins were playing outside. And I remember always feeling like ashamed of my body. That was like very first time that I felt shame associated with my body, or that I was dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And that for just being a small child running through a sprinkler, none of those boys were looking at me that way. Not a one of them. I can promise we were so interested in running back and forth through that sprinkler,
Mm-hmm.
but that had to be a moment for them too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now they noticed. And now it's, oh, those aren't just, body parts. Those are something that we should try and seek to see because we're not supposed to see it. How did that affect them?
Yeah.
Was that a moment for them?
Yeah.
Did they suddenly look at little girls, did they start to notice that?
Yeah.
Because they didn't. I mean, truly, they were maybe 2-3 years older than me. It was children playing. But Lily, she was wanting to run through the sprinklers and play outside, and with her boy cousins, we'd actually got one of those blow up water slide things, and she was like, I was like, Lily, put on your shirt. In my head, I was saving her from that moment, but I was so insistent that she was like, and it just hit me, like it was just like, what?
Yeah.
And it's like I was like, I'm sorry. There's nothing shameful about your body, and people, because there were adults there too, and I had to have that discussion with her, like, because she was like, what, Mom? Like, she didn't understand it. I don't know. There's so many things that just, it's interesting to see how, and I was like, I wonder, what was my mom's first moment? When did she first feel that shame? And those boys were not only were they seeing an adult come and state like that, because I truly believe that woman came out there like that because she was concerned. I really think that she was. What happened to her? Because we were just kids. We were other kids. Did something happen that she couldn't trust a young boy when she was younger? And,
Absolutely. That's where the curiosity comes, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is his lineage?
Yeah.
Where does this start? And like you had said earlier, if we do things at the front end, we could do so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's the old saying, the babies are drowning in the river and you're just trying to pull them out from the riverbanks and save as many babies as you can, knowing you can't save every baby.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no one who's going upriver, right? That primary prevention.
Right.
To say, how'd they get in the river in the first place? Mm-hmm. And when we begin to level the field with equity,
Yep.
and where people have equal access to basic human rights, medical, dental, food, clothing, shelter, education.
And legal access to a public defender who isn't burnout and not the corruption of, I can just pay my way out of jail.
Mm-hmm. Because that's a lot. I mean, think of it, bond. And kind of going back to that, that instance and what you were saying about, how do we, at the front end. I think that woman was, and it just dawned on me, she was trying to save me from her trauma.
Quite possibly.
And if we do everything from a point of like that just, anxiety inducing fear, and we don't do it from a point of like healing and calm, then we're not helping. We're just there's somebody will talk about us, 20 years down the road and think, oh, this was really traumatizing for me.
We're trauma dumping on others.
Yes.
Our own.
We're trying to save
unhealed.
ourselves in instances with other people and other, I had no experience like that. And that woman likely could have been trying to save me from what she felt, but she created it,
But your recognition of putting that on your own daughter and realizing in the moment, I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can help her process her feelings of what I'm going through. And like, why did Mom say that to me? Now she's not going to be left to fester with that
right
for 30 years and dwell on it. And she has that trust and connection of a healthy relationship.
Oh,
right?
I tell her all the time, I'm like, because I fuck up all the time. And I sometimes I feel like parenting is just I'm trying to make sure that my child has as little trauma to heal from me as humanly possible. But that doesn't, I'm going to mess up.
Fuck
but
yeah.
All the
I don't even have kids and I mess up. I'm just saying, it's everybody fucks shit up because there is no right way. There is no right answer. There is, however, the path to making decisions and having conversations filled with compassion and empathy. That's the key.
She should have to heal from my mistakes.
Yeah.
And that way she'll know they're my mistakes. And that she doesn't carry the burden of that. She wasn't wrong. I was wrong. And I'm sorry for any pain it caused her, but at least, I hope that she'll never have that, oh, well, was it my fault? That self-doubt, that, well, my mother loves me. If my mother loves me, then she must be right. No, girl, honestly, I make mistakes.
And that's when learning really happens. Like, I think about those really pivotal moments in my own life when my parents have said, yeah, I really messed up. And it wasn't like years later. Like, it was like in the moment. And I'm like, wow. Right. And I think about like in working with clients, when I screwed something up, like it'd be interesting for people to be a fly on the wall. Like when I apologize to a client, like for example, something as simple as my phone not being on D&D.
Yep. Done it.
And it rings, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Didn't think, right? It happens. It's a mistake. And I'll say, I am so sorry that I neglected to put my phone on D&D or something along those lines. Please accept my apology. I'm going to get up and I'm going to put this on D&D. And in the future, I'm going to be very aware. And clients are like, what? You don't have to apologize. No, yes, I do, right? When you apologize to a kid, they're like,
And it makes them more able, I think, to say, I'm sorry when you're wrong
yes,
too.
because you're modeling. If you've never learned, just like for people who've never learned how to say I love you, if you've never learned how to receive an apology, how to give an apology, how do you know how to do it?
Yeah. And oh my gosh, it all cycles back to it's amazing how this conversation is flowing, but thinking about if there's a mother who never tells their son that's what they're doing is wrong. They never learn how to apologize. They never learned that that's inappropriate behavior. They never, and then all of a sudden they're standing in front of a judge who, when at home, if they could have had healing and love and, or just even, not that they aren't loving mothers or parents, I shouldn't say that maybe they just didn't learn how to apologize or that accountability that comes with that and how to say I'm sorry, then maybe we would have had a situation that could have been, they didn't get there. They didn't get there because they learned that empathy. They learned I'm sorry. They took in when someone said I'm sorry to them and it being painful. And
those parents need resources.
Exactly.
And those resources come from a social justice lens of how we exist as human beings in this world.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you, like doing victim impact statements with clients, right? It's fascinating when I've done it with children. Because one of the questions that is asked statewide, like it's a state form. What kind of punishment would you like to see happen to this person who hurt you? Or something in those words. Very simplistic.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, children, like I'm going to say 80% have said, I want them to tell me they're sorry for they hurt me. That's what they want. Now, do they have the brain development to understand law? No, they do not. Right? That's why we have caregivers. That's why we have guardian ad litem. That's why we have therapists and caseworkers and legal advocates, right? We have to protect that person, right?
They understand empathy and humanity.
But they understand what is it that you want from this person? Like I'll say, if you had a magic wand, and I use a little magic wand back here, right? What would you want? And I want them to say they're sorry for hurting me. Now, some kids get really creative. Some kids will say, I do want them to go to jail. They have an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, okay, well, what would that look like? And then they create this beautiful thing of what jail looks like to them.
Mm-hmm.
And how long they would want that person to be in jail. And that's, each kid. But it is a beautiful thing to understand. And if you think about it as an adult, what is it that we want when somebody has wronged us? Just at the basic level. We want somebody to acknowledge it. We want somebody to apologize for it. And we want somebody to say, I'm not going to do that again. Like, have you all ever been cut off in traffic before?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Who hasn't?
And
You're like, oh, it's okay.
exactly, versus the person who ignores, right? And then you're like, oh, what a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Am I not
It's
right?
just the simple, like,
Oh, and how many times have I almost, and I'll go, oh, I'm so, right? And then you see this expression change
Mm-hmm.
from one of anger, usually, because there's some assholes out there,
Mm-hmm.
to one of, acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the basic. Now, some of us, and if someone murdered my family, I ain't gonna lie, that's gonna try my little peace-loving heart.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to that question you asked.
It's hard to reconcile, like, criminal justice reform. We need empathy for everyone, but when someone does something as horrific as what we deal with on a daily basis, to murder, to how, what does equality look like for that? And I think it's access to someone who can defend them accurately, and other people not having access to paid lawyers. Let's ignore the public defender. Let's just get rid of top paid lawyers. You can stop being able to buy your way out of things in capitalism.
Exactly.
Ah!
Capitalism paid everything.
I know. Fuck it. It's so
because,
not fair.
I'm
sorry. I'm getting angry.
No, it isn't. It isn't fair. It's not fair. And it's just, again, if we at the front end, if we gave everyone access to just things that should be given to the right as a human being, you should never have to steal food. That's crazy.
It's a human right.
We have to pay, we pay taxes to pay for jail food. Let's pay taxes to pay for food when they're small. So they're never hungry and angry, it just...
Make it make sense, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that like the little...
Make it make sense.
And how do we have an attorney that defends
Season
them against
4.
capitalism?
Season 4, make it make sense.
Yeah.
Boom.
And
Thank you, Megan. You just gave us season 4.
And Megan, I think that is a perfect closing note, because I'm looking at the time, and
Oh,
always
yes.
I get really deep into these conversations.
Yeah,
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you so much. This was
Thanks.
delightful. This was eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Should
got
we-
chills several times.
We're gonna ask you, how would you feel about
About 5 questions.
rapid fire questions?
Okay.
Okay. I got my 3. Do you want to? If you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be?
To make everyone around me feel safe.
That is the sweetest thing I've ever heard.
That's going to be the best one. That's the best one so far. Okay. What is your favorite gadget that you own?
Ooh, gadget like it.
You get to decide what is a gadget. Nobody else gets to decide.
Oh my gosh, there's so many things. You're gonna be like, this is weird.
I love weird.
It's a little sort of like a Swiss Army knife,
Mhm.
but it changes the screwdriver, what bit you need.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yes.
Did you pop the new one in?
Yes, I love it. I love
That's cool.
Yeah, because
Megan, you're so weird.
But I love that thing. Like when it goes missing, I'm like, where is it? Like, I'm like, who touched it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that thing.
If you could be any animal in the world, what is your animal?
Oh God, I can't. This is hard. Manatee. Well, yeah, manatee.
That's an animal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
manatee.
They're
friendly.
adorable.
Yeah.
they just kind of float. And
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
They're peaceful and
They're
they're
nice.
friendly. They let people pet them. And my favorite fact about them is that back, way back when people get scurvy really bad at sea, they used to like hallucinate and think that they were mermaids. And I love that big full bodied animal is like seated, like I just love that. And I just, yeah.
What is your favorite go-to beverage?
Dr. Pepper.
Oh yeah, that's good.
All right, and then the last one. Who is your favorite band/musician?
Fiona Apple.
She's good. That's the first two on here.
That is a first.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that.
Good.
I like her. She's funny and she's just cool, chill, but super awkward in interviews. And so I just want to relate to you, sister.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you guys.
It was so fun.
It was.
Thanks for being here.
And like we always say to all of our listeners out there or viewers now, because we're on YouTube, check us out. You can change the world tomorrow just by listening today. So have a beautiful
Bye.
Well, we've made it to the end of our episode. We want to thank you for listening. We hope you'll take something you heard today and use it to change the world tomorrow. We wanted to thank our music producer, Seth Hedges, from Uriah Wild Media. His website is in the show description. Also, a big shout out to Rodney Newton, our technical advisor.
See you next time. This project was supported by grant number VOCA 2020 Green River 26, awarded through the Kentucky Justice and Public Safety Cabinet by the U.S. Department of Justice. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this program are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Kentucky Justice and Public Safety Cabinet or the U.S. Department of Justice. Thank you.